Never Mind the Buzzwords is a community event from Jigsaw Better Business. Taking place bi-monthly, its aim is to build a community of businesses and professionals where you can learn, share and connect. It's about going beyond the jargon and coming away from each session with knowledge, tangible tools, tips, strategies, and hopefully an extended network. Each event is focused either on people or a process. In the process sessions, we talk about how we deliver value in our business. Topics here include lean tools and thinking, operational excellence, sustainability, and digital transformation. In the people sessions, we look beyond the process to the who, discussing topics like leadership, teams, culture, and professional development. Never Mind the Buzzwords isn't just an event that you attend, it's an event to participate in. So get involved in the conversation, put your camera on if you can, share your thoughts, ideas or questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. And don't forget to stay in touch. We have a LinkedIn group where we upload resources and recordings from this community. And if you follow Never Mind the Buzzwords on Eventbrite, you'll be notified whenever we post a new event. We're going through today, do feel free to engage with what we're talking about. I'll be sharing polls, feel free to ask questions or share comments into the chat as well. So the topic for today is all about keeping calm in order to be highly focused and productive. So if anyone on the call has been finding it maybe hard to focus, hard to be as productive as you'd like to be, if you've ever been, feeling overwhelmed or experiencing anxiety maybe, or if you know someone who has, then this event will be important and relevant for you. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Caroline Cunningham, and she plans to share a bit of her own experiences, discussing how we can become a bit more resilient, as well as sharing some tangible tips and strategies for becoming more focused and productive. So before we get into that, just want to kind of set the scene a little bit. Chances are, either you are someone or you know someone who at some point in their life has experienced burnout, anxiety, or you felt stressed for an extended period of time. And we've all had, a stressful day at work. That's fine, it's not the end of the world. But if that persists, that's what we're going to see as potentially leading to burnout. So burnout is that state of physical and mental and emotional exhaustion. So it can occur when you're experiencing long-term, physical or emotional demands in your job. And common signs of burnout include, feeling drained or tired, helpless, feeling trapped or feeling defeated. So it results in that kind of loss of motivation, less satisfaction in your job. So in the context of, say, Ireland, where most of us are dialing in from, Ireland is actually, according to the World Health Organization, in the top 10 countries for the percentage of people who are affected by anxiety disorders. And also, according to the WHO, the World Health Organization estimates that anxiety and depression disorders cost the global economy $1 trillion each year in lost productivity. So we can see it's really important to be focusing on. The CIPD then as well, just their statement is that, when we're actively promoting staff well-being, that leads to greater staff productivity, morale and retention, reduced sickness and sickness absence and presenteeism as well. So, people just showing up and maybe not performing at their best, or not showing up and missing work because of illness or stress. So that's just to put it into context a little bit. It's obviously a really important topic that we are discussing today. So I'll stop sharing that and I'll just come over to Caroline then. So We'll just pop the two of us there. So if you're dialing in, I'd say recommend, pop it onto speaker view so you can see us there. But yeah, Caroline, you're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today to discuss this topic, which I know you're obviously very interested in. Do you want to maybe even give us a little bit of an introduction, maybe like how you came, what you do and kind of how you came into that line of work?
Hi, Julie, and hi, everybody. Welcome along, and thank you for having me here today. So without boring you too much about my background, I have the insider take on anxiety and stress and depression and burnout, because I've been through all of these things, and that's what led me today to being here talking to you, because I want to help other people to avoid those things, or at least to know what to do if it does happen to them. And the message I have is that there's support there, and there are plenty of things that we can do to achieve our full potential, no matter what challenges we face in our journey. So my background was, I was a maths and science teacher more than 20 years ago. And after about 5 years, I reached a stage of burnout. Now, when you described burnout there, Julie, it sounded a lot nicer than what I experienced. It was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me in my whole life. It's like the bottom falling out of your world, and you just really do feel helpless, but also, not knowing where to start from to build yourself back up. That can be quite scary. Back then, in 1999, we didn't have these types of discussions around mental health and self-care and well-being. In fact, there's a lot of shame around, having had a struggle. So people didn't really talk about it. So I had to do a lot of searching to find my way back to good health. But I didn't just find my way back to good health. I found an excellent way of taking care of myself. And that's how my strengths are in helping other people, because I've been there, I know what's possible. And if somebody's up for making a difference in their life, I can help them. So basically, I went in search of not just therapies. Like, I would have tried a lot of different types of therapies for relaxation, healing, but also I engaged in the arts, because that was part of me that was, I suppose, hidden away. And any type of creative thing that you can get involved in is very good for getting things out and expressing yourself. And no matter, even if you don't want to have a professional career as an artist, it's still, the creative arts are very important for us. It's helping us to express ourselves and understand the types of emotions and things we're dealing with. So when it came to anxiety, along the way, I went through about 2 years of panic attacks following a car accident where I was knocked down as a pedestrian. I would say it contributed to my panic attacks. It may not have been the only factor. There was a lot of change, big upheavals going on in my life, and it tends to be that can lead to panic attacks. When there's a lot of uncertainty and we're a lot out of our comfort zone. So those kind of things came along. And the other thing was as well, I started pushing myself out of my comfort zone completely. So I ended up doing things I never expected that I would end up doing. I started having art exhibitions and putting myself out there. That involved a lot of getting over this imposter syndrome as well. I wrote books. I published a poetry book. I also published this little book, which I'm going to be talking about today, 7 C's to Calm, Reclaiming Your Anxiety-Free Self. And I ended up being a little bit of a social media guru, I suppose. I started networking a lot more, and really, I was an introvert, and maybe some people think I look like an extrovert now, but I'm still an introvert. I love people, and I have my own way of being out there. It's not all about being showy and all that kind of thing. It's just be yourself. That's why Authentic Path resonates with me, because it has been very much a journey of being true to who I am and encouraging others to be the same, because that's what makes us all very unique. But coming back to the book, how that came about was I had a lot of, when I eventually trained as a reflexology therapist, which is a relaxation therapy, a lot of clients who were coming to me were coming from professional backgrounds. Like some of them worked for Google, Udemy, the central bank. I had they were very intelligent, confident looking people, but yet struggling with anxiety. And this was what was coming up in their therapy sessions with me. And it was clear that they just didn't know what to do or how to go about dealing with it. So that was what prompted me to write the book. It's very, very simple structure, and that's purposely so, because anxiety is very overwhelming at times. And the last thing you want is this big mountain of things that you have to do. So it's very simple. There's a workbook. You can carry it with you. It can serve as an anchor. And even the text, the pages are designed so that if you're somebody, for example, with dyslexia, it doesn't add to the anxiety. It's the off-white pages and stuff like that. So all those things are there, and that's how I ended up here, basically.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a great kind of summary of what I'm sure is a very long and kind of more complex journey, but it's a nice kind of succinct summary of that journey. I just wanted to actually pop up a poll and see. So just if it should pop up for everyone on their screens, it says in the last month, how often have you felt overwhelmed or distracted? So I just want to see, just in terms of people dialing in, and this is all anonymous, but we have those 4 options there of kind of most of the time in the last month, or sometimes maybe around half the time, occasionally, or rarely. So I'll just give you a few minutes there to see those results coming in. I think that's pretty much everyone now. So if I just even end that poll and share it, we can see that the majority, about 41% of people were saying that, around half the time they've been feeling a bit overwhelmed or distracted in the last while. 18% saying most of the time they're feeling that. 32% saying occasionally, and then quite a small minority, 9%, were actually saying, this month I haven't really, I've rarely felt that. So it's it's very interesting to see that, I suppose everyone dialing in has some experience of that even just maybe to a lesser extent of what you were describing there, or to a similar extent, just that feeling of overwhelm. And I might just pop up another one then as well, just again to get a bit of insight into how people are feeling. We have one there about your focus levels over the last maybe couple of months. So how have your focus or productivity levels been? So again, that should just pop up on your screen. We're saying either very focused and productive most of the time, or about half the time I'm focused and productive in work. Or the third option there, I find myself getting distracted or losing focus more often than I'd like. Okay, so we've got a couple of options there. And again, I'll just give people a minute to interact with that and see how people have been feeling over the last, 3 months, half year, kind of since the start of the year, how their productivity levels have been. Okay, that's pretty much everyone. So again, I'll just share it. So again, the majority, nearly half of people are saying that they find themselves get distracted or losing focus more often than they'd like. 35% said that it's about half the time, and 17% are saying, I'm been very focused and productive most of the time. So it's interesting to see that it is a common challenge that a lot of people are dealing with. And Caroline, you were mentioning that you've worked, with clients in organizations, and there's, various issues that they would be dealing with. How do you see that stress or that kind of overwhelm might impact a person's ability to do their job? Like what will be the impact usually of stress?
Well, there definitely is an impact, Julie, and the figures don't lie, the ones you've been, calling out there. Someone said they're very thought-provoking. Like the fact is, and this is proven, right? Most psychologists even agree, you cannot think of 2 things at the same time in any moment. you can mind wander and ruminate from one thing to the other. And you can definitely multitask and all that, because some things you can do automatically. But in terms of thinking and how we use our minds, you can't successfully think of two things at the same time. So when we're mind wandering, we're not focused, basically. And if you're suffering from stress and anxiety, you're definitely not completely focused on your job or anything else that you're doing in life. And things can just pass you by, as we know. So if you're really serious about something that you want to achieve, whether it's in your work or in your life, it takes a little bit of effort to just bring your mind and your awareness to what exactly is going on. And that would be my biggest tip, is to hone your self-awareness and learn about, you know, the things that you can do to help yourself. We all get challenges. That's going to be always the way. At different stages of our lives, even, you know, we encounter different challenges, not just in work. So it's always going to be an ongoing thing. But how to be resilient is to hone your self-awareness. And that way, the sooner that something crops up that's impacting you, then you can deal with it. But if you leave things to build and build and build, it's like a messy ball of wool that the cat is after getting, and it's after tangling everything up. Then it's like, oh, where do I start here to unravel all of this mess that I'm in? I don't even know which side to start from. You know, you just really can't see, because you're in the middle of it, you know. So by honing self-awareness, which is something I help people with in particular, that's how you manage, and that's how you can get yourself out, you know, and flowing again.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I'd say I'm sure most of us on the call have had some experience of, say, you know, someone says, oh, how was your day? And you're like, yeah, it's fine. You're like, is it fine? You know, you're like, I'm fine, you know, and you don't even realize you actually think you are fine, but you're snapping, or it's coming out in some other way. And other people can kind of tell, don't seem 100%, you know, and it's probably just that lack of pausing to reflect, to go, no, I actually had a really stressful day, or I've been really, you know, jumping from one thing to the next. So no, I'm not actually fine, but you haven't even come to that realization. And do you have any particular strategies or suggestions for developing that self-awareness?
Well, one of the key things is taking time out for yourself. And, you know, you can't be reflecting on things if you're whizzing around the whole time and doing everything for everybody else, but not yourself. So putting yourself first a little bit, you know, that has to factor into it. So even if it's just in the morning time, 5 or 10 minutes, maybe a little bit of a meditation, or it could be just sitting outside your door or having a cup of tea for a while, but giving yourself just time for not thinking about anything in particular, not looking up TikTok, for example, you know, filling your head with all kinds of stuff. It's actually about connecting in with how you are and the world around you as well. Like, nature is a very it's a great teacher, really. You know, if you're not sure how to connect in with yourself, have a go at connecting in with the world around you through nature, like trees, for example, or just listening to the birds. I know these sound very simple, but that's the thing, and people are sometimes defeated by the simplicity of what actually works. So I just say, take time for yourself, go for a walk, switch off, you know, just completely switch off. Go somewhere new every now and again, because routine sometimes, we go into this automated mode, you know, with the routine, and then we forget again. So we forget about ourselves, I mean. So you have to kind of keep looking for new things. It's like if you keep eating the same food, we get bored of it after a while, you know. So it's the same idea. Keep your mind curious. Read about, like, if it's anxiety that's affecting you, learn about it. You know, learn about the different ways that people are dealing with it. One guy I was talking to there about a week ago, a young man actually in his 30s, we were actually having a great conversation about anxiety, and he'd had gone through panic attacks. And I said to him, this is really refreshing, because you know, I didn't think I'd be having this conversation with you, you know, like about this. And he said to me, well, I figured out, he said, and he did all the things that I had mentioned in my book. Like, he realized that self-awareness was really important. He started kind of cashing himself out and noticing, you know, when he was starting to feel anxious. And one of the things he discovered was that drinking orange juice actually helped him to feel calm. Now, I'm not saying orange juice is the answer, but for him, he noticed that that was something that made him feel calm. So there could be something particular to yourself, you know, someone else. You know, not the same thing for everybody, you know. So that's what I mean by self-awareness. It's really about getting to know yourself and being the expert of being yourself.
Yeah, I really like that. And I quite like that example because, you know, at face value, you think, okay, so you say, yeah, juice is going to cure anxiety. Like, no, but it's like you can create your own little signals or reminders or triggers, you know, just the same as when your phone buzzes, that's a signal to look at it. You know, if we could rewire that and say, okay, every time I get, you know, this signal, every time I'm, I don't know, in the line at a grocery store, I'm going to use that time to, you know, be mindful and look around me and listen around me and, you know, not be paying attention to phones or distractions. So yeah, I really like those points. And I'd agree as well in terms of the, you know, being mindful, because I think sometimes when I talk to people and they think, oh no, I don't like meditation, or I don't want to do mindfulness, or I don't have time for it. But like you said, it can be something really simple, like just sitting out having a coffee, you know.
Julie, when I was putting together my Focus for Success program, the one you see behind me there, I was researching like what do all the kind of these founders of various companies do themselves, you know. And I came across Bill Gates' blogs, and he had a blog post where he said that back a while back, he used to think that meditation was this woohoo thing, you know, and that's what some people would connect it with. And he said that, you know, he wasn't into that at all. But anyway, somewhere along the line, he got introduced to Andy from Headspace, or he heard him speaking, I think it was. And because he was able to present it in a scientific way, even though Andy himself had studied he was a Tibetan monk apparently. He did that for a number of years, so he's quite expert in the whole meditation thing. But he had, like, there is a scientific basis for all of these things. And as a result, Bill Gates ended up flying Andy from Headspace over to his home and with his family, and spent a week getting trained up on how to meditate, and started having it as a daily routine. So, you know, it's interesting, people's attitudes can change. The other way I look at meditation is, sometimes I don't call it meditation, I call it breathing techniques, right? Now, US Navy SEALs actually use breathing techniques as part of their training. And you can imagine they're working under intense pressure. You know, very kind of dangerous situations they're going into and stuff like that. But actually they have a coach who designed a particular breathing technique for them, and they call it the box breathing technique, which they use regularly, you know, just to keep calm and to be able to focus clearly. It's because really, like, you know, we need to be able to think clearly in stressful situations, especially. You wouldn't want to make the wrong decision in that type of a job. And if you can imagine as well, bomb squad teams, you know, there's another area you would definitely need to be very focused doing a job like that. So they would need to have these techniques as well. So if you don't want to call it meditation, you can just simply call it breathing techniques. But the scientific basis for it, and this is what I really encourage people to learn about, we are just like in our bodies, loads of chemicals flowing around through our blood system and all the rest. And our brain interacts with all of this. So, like, I encourage people to learn about the stress response, because that's what's at play when we're anxious. And the whole thing is that if you can understand and learn about that, you'll also find out that we have control over reversing and reducing those processes. And that's where the slowing of our breathing and emptying our mind, that's where that comes into play. You're actually learning to switch off the adrenaline and the cortisol that's rushing around inside your body. When these stress hormones are at large in your body, they're actually switching off or down the other hormones that you need and the enzymes and everything for your digestion, your reproduction, and your immunology. So your health can get very, deteriorate quite rapidly over a period of time if you're not learning to switch off those stress hormones. And that's what the danger really is for people, because there are long-term consequences to not learning how to be calm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, really important. It really is everything, your health and everything. And that's a great story about Bill Gates, and fair play to Andy. I'd say he was delighted getting flown out to Bill Gates' camp. Like, it's amazing. But yeah, I know what you were saying about the scientific basis as well, because like when I was studying psychology, it just seemed like every study was like, and mindfulness improves cognitive function and memory, and you're like, how does it do all of this? It was nearly a bit surprising, or
I think Julie, like I studied science as well, but when I look back on that time, I feel we studied science in a way that was disconnected from the fact that it was actually, these are things that are happening inside us, and the impact on our lives and stuff like that. We learned it, well, at least I did, we learned it in a very theoretical kind of a way, rather than applying it to ourselves. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, like that I'd been through science education and yet ended up with the stress and anxiety and not knowing what to do,
Yeah. There's just a comment that came in there from Steve. He was just mentioning about how those numbers are very eye-opening about Ireland being in the top 10 for anxiety disorders. And, he's wondering, do we think that that's because we in Ireland are now better at talking about it or identifying it? Or do we think it's something else? Like, why do we think we're in the top 10 for anxiety disorders? Do you have any suggestions or ideas on that?
Well, I think we're definitely, as a nation, we're definitely opening up more. Like when you look at, there's been a huge change in Ireland when it comes to lots of things, to do with, the LGBT community, for example, having more of their freedoms and rights, and, giving people more rights in terms of, their bodies. And in general, we're opening up as a society to discuss the things that, would have been difficult for people in the past and still are difficult. They're not easy topics, all of these things that are to do with how we want to express ourselves. And like I found, even as a creative, that wasn't always easy. For me, coming out as a creative was almost, it almost felt like I was coming out and saying I'm gay or whatever, because nobody around me was in that mode and no one understood what I was, going through or whatever. Some people did think I was a bit crazy, like, what, do you want to be an artist? You're not going to make any money, but so there are these these are stepping stones, like the way our society is moving forward and being more open around mental health and taking away the stigma and the shame that are attached. Because a lot of times people have these challenges because of things that happen to them in life. It's not like we're all born with anxiety. Like, you don't get a test at birth to say, oh, this baby's very anxious. It's a result of the things that happen to us along the way. And sometimes they're things that we don't even remember. They're deep in our subconscious. And that can be shown, like, for example, through hypnotherapy. Sometimes people develop phobias, for example, which is another type of anxiety. And it could be something they can never, they've completely forgotten about. Like a friend, for example, who had a fear of birds and she didn't understand why. But under hypnosis, it came about that this memory resurfaced of her as a toddler. And she was sitting in a chair that she couldn't move out of. And some bird, it came along, which was out in her backyard, whatever. And it frightened her quite a bit. I don't know exactly what happened with the bird, but she hadn't remembered that before. And she had an older sister who she asked about it. afterwards, she said, do you remember this happening? And the sister did. And she said, well, that must be where I got my fear of this unexplained fear of birds from,
Yeah.
And similarly, people have other phobias, spiders, heights, whatever, and that can be other, like when it comes to anxiety, it has a very deep effect in some people's lives. Like it can affect you, for example, you may not have relationships because of some unresolved trauma that's there. And unknowns to yourself, maybe you're avoiding certain situations that would lead you to, various things that you want to achieve in your life. So anxiety and stress, they do hold us back. The pandemic saw where a lot of people were kind of almost fearful of getting back out into society again, and, because of the way we've had to live, so there can be fears and anxieties that have built up as a result of various traumas that we've encountered along the way. So it's not all, that we're weak, or it's nothing to do with that at all. In fact, if you do something about overcoming the anxiety that you have, you will be actually a much stronger person as a result of that.
Definitely, yeah. There's a comment in the chat there as well about we're learning so much more now than what we did, and we understand more about trauma and toxic stress. And a lot of Ireland's anxiety disorders are a result of the toxic stress from generations of poverty, abuse, and corporal punishment. So there is that history there. There was that history of like shame and judgment. And then again, Sinead just popped in a comment as well, just saying that she read about one of Ireland's oldest women, Bridget Tierney, who's 107. And she says, such a heartwarming story. One of Bridget's secrets to a long and healthy life is calm, positive mindset. So yeah, we could definitely all learn a bit from Bridget. So that's really interesting. But yeah, so in terms of like managing stress and that, I actually might pop up just one more poll and just launch that. So Caroline, I know you mentioned about using art and that kind of creative outlet, but I'm just popping up a poll there that you should see in front of you. So it's, what strategies do you usually use to cope with stress? So we've got meditation or yoga or breathing exercises, physical activity, getting a bit of sport in, burning off that energy, speaking to people, whether that's friends, family, colleagues, spending time with a pet. There's definitely like stress reducing properties there. Counseling or coaching, talking to a professional, journaling, writing lists, creative endeavors like you mentioned, painting, knitting, whatever else you might do, cleaning or tidying or organizing, leaving the room or getting away from the situation that's stressful, so trying to kind of avoid that, or other, which a few people are mentioning. So maybe if you have any particular ones that work for you, you can pop those into the chat and share them in case they might help other people. So we can see most people have voted. Might just give you another minute. Oh yeah, Rachel, video games. Yeah, that's definitely a good one to kind of switch off as well. So I'll just launch or share the results there. We can see, I think the main one, 52% of people are saying physical activity. So yeah, it's getting, whether that's out in fresh air or out to the gym or wherever else, getting a bit of physical activity going. 44% of people say speaking with others. Another 44 said to try and get away from the situation, just physically remove yourself from it. 40% say cleaning or tidying or organizing. I think I'd like that one as well. I like to be organizing things if I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. 24% saying that either meditation or yoga or breathing exercises. And yeah, then about 16% for the other ones, things like spending time with a pet, coaching or counseling. Yeah, we've got about 20% of people saying creative. So there's quite a mixture there. Frank, you're saying gardening. Sinead, yeah, prayer, which is not mentioned there. So that's another strategy or approach that people can take. So yeah, really wide range of activities that people are doing. I suppose the tricky thing can just be sometimes making time for those. You know, it's knowing, okay, I know that physical activity, or I know that yoga helps me, but you know, when you're in the middle of it, it's harder to.
Can I mention something, Julie?
Course,
This is something that I only really thought of recently, and I know this is something that affects me now and again. And I'm just wondering, does it affect other people, or have they even noticed? And maybe if they haven't noticed, they could check for the next week and see, is it a thing, right? Do you know on TikTok, for example, which I'm not really on TikTok, but my other half is, and YouTube is another thing. Our kids sometimes are watching various tutorial type things. I just find that a lot of these videos are put together where they eliminate any spaces in people's speaking, so that they get it in as much talking and speaking in a short space of time. And the whole thing, it ends up being unnaturally fast. I can't learn anything or absorb anything when something is that fast. But what I found is when people are looking at this one after the other, and it's the same, like constant, really fast talking, I actually find very stressful after a while. And I have to kind of say to whoever's around me, can you just go away with that, or put a headphone on or something like that? Or I'm wondering about what it's doing to them, you know, because that's not switching off in my mind. That's making me have to work really, really hard. And maybe that's just me, but I'm just curious, is anyone else feeling that way, or have they even noticed? Could you check it out, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe if people want to pop into the chat, if they're saying, yeah, that resonates, or yeah, Mairead's saying, yes, I agree. Yeah, it seems like it's because your attention is constantly jumping from one thing to the next with those kinds of TikToks. You know, it's very, one thing to the next. Steve's saying, so true, Caroline. Some of the kids, some of the cartoons the kids watch, there's no calm, it's just really intense. Good few people are saying, it's hard, it's exhausting. So yeah, you're not alone there, Caroline, it seems.
Just see a few names there that I recognize, and just saying thank you for coming along, Janet and Sinead. So that's just a thing. And the other thing as well, somebody mentioned prayer. Like, prayer is another form of meditation. Would you believe it? The Dalai Lama, he is supposed to be meditates at least 7 hours a day, right? And he was in an interview with somebody who said, well, what about when you have a really busy day? Like, because he has quite a schedule of talks and things like that. And he goes, when I have a busy day, I do more. But like, he gets up at 3 a.m. or something like that. And then he has a different routine, obviously, to us. But I'm sure that's not so easy for all of us to achieve. But the fact is that, like, he sees meditation and that type of switching off as the answer to dealing with having more busy day, if you like. So if we even did a teeny weeny bit, it would be good, you know.
Exactly. And that's it. I think if it's really high on your priority list, like that self-care, or that, you know, if it sort of becomes a non-negotiable for you, it's not like you have to motivate yourself to go to the gym or to, you know, do your breathing exercises. It's kind of, it just becomes, you know, like brushing your teeth. Like, it's not something that you I don't really have time for that. You know, you make time for it.
Well, I found that as I progressed through my own learnings and building self-awareness and practicing of various therapies on myself, even, that it becomes a habit. And sometimes you don't have to physically go and lie down in a room, for example. You can actually just be sitting in your chair and just take a minute to switch off, take a deep breath, check in how you are, and just, you know, give yourself a signal to let go. And that becomes a habit, you know, where it's like anything. It's like when you're training in the gym. If you keep going there and doing, you know, the routine of your exercises, you start getting stronger, your muscles start building, you know, you become aerobically fit and things like that. So it's the same thing with this. It takes a little bit of effort at the start to create the new habit, but after a while it becomes the new habit and it becomes easier.
Yeah. And I'm wondering as well, some people on the call, they might be kind of feeling low, like, no, I've kind of got this. I know what I should be doing, or I know what I could be doing. And maybe this is a bit of a reminder to, be doing more of the self-care, building the self-awareness. But I wonder, if anyone's thinking, oh, I have someone in my life that, is really struggling maybe with stress or with anxiety. Could be a colleague, could be a partner, could be a child. Um, is there anything that you'd recommend that people should know when it comes to helping someone, say, for example, with anxiety?
Well, I definitely recommend my little book, Seven Seas to Calm, because that has very good tips in there and the structure to, start working through. But the main thing is to be compassionate and understanding, non-judgmental towards whoever it is, and to allow them to, express what's going on. Like, for example, if it is panic attacks that they are experiencing, and even anxiety, they have physical symptoms. So it's not all in your head. It can be very frightening. Like when I had panic attacks, it was extremely frightening. And they would happen at moments when I'd be in a room full of people where the spotlight is could be on me at any moment. And yet I'm just sitting there on a chair. And it's sort of this sensation of all of a sudden that almost like the light's being pulled out of, as if I might fall off the edge of the earth sort of thing. Not that we have an edge, but into a black hole or something like that. And that sounds very irrational but actually I had experienced those sensations. And it took me a long time to actually tell anybody, because I thought, they definitely could say I'm mad there, But a friend who had, been going through some stress in the past or whatever, and was attending some counseling sessions, who had gotten to know me and realized, like, this is not what you're always like, and started the conversation around, what's happening, how are you feeling? And then I started trying to describe this thing, and she said to me, that sounds like panic attacks, and you probably should go and seek support, because there's something you can do. So I did, and I initially went for like talking therapy, and the whole thing of, I suppose, connecting in with emotions that were difficult. That was something I had never done before. So that was I suppose a one way of starting the process. But like listening to people, what is going on, try to encourage them that there's something you can do. You really, like, some people have probably gone through their whole lives not realizing that there was something they could do, and that's the sadness of this. And I certainly don't want that to happen to anybody that I know. So, there definitely is support out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point as well, of just more compassion and less judgment for these kinds of things, because again, you wouldn't judge someone for having a tummy bug, or or for breaking their arm. If it's a physical thing, it's treated very differently usually than something mental, as if, oh, it's all in your head, as if that doesn't mean anything. Like, it's I think it's a really good point about just listening to the person as well. Like, you'd hear people, like, if they kind of tell someone, oh, you're being crazy or you're being irrational, that's just gonna make it worse, which is the opposite effect that you probably want to have if it's someone you care about.
I see some people saying that they find the point about the fast-paced talking is a thing.
Yeah. Exactly. And the kids cartoons and how fast paced it is now, and someone has mentioned it's just a new way of thinking, or a different way of thinking. And I do wonder, we don't know what the impact of that will be, or if it's good or bad, or if it makes a difference, or if it's just different. So there is a few comments in there of people have observed that maybe with their kids or whoever else. Okay, so I know we're kind of coming up towards 10 to, and we've been obviously talking about, all these different challenges that some people might really be resonating with for them. And we were thinking we might just do, a few minutes of a guided meditation. I suppose, Caroline, would you like to kind of lead us in that for maybe
Sure.
just 3 minutes or
Yeah.
so?
Yeah.
I might just pause the recording for a second. I'll just resume the recording there after a nice relaxing couple of minutes. I suppose when we were talking about this event, like, we're talking about challenging things, and we didn't want to just send you off and go, all right, there you go. So that's just, you've taken a bit of time out of your day. A lot of people popping into the comments just saying thank you so much, very well or very needed, or yeah, that's all good. So as I said, just in case anything that we spoke about today does affect you in any way, there are free supports available. Just popped up a couple there. You've got Aware, you've got this Text 50808 as a free text service. The first two are more in Ireland, but Samaritans has that international reach as well for anyone dialing in from other countries. But I just want to say thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing your experiences and having that discussion, because I suppose by speaking about it, like we mentioned, it hasn't always been spoken about in the past. So by speaking about it, you may be encouraging someone else who might be just dealing with challenges, big or small, and it'll hopefully help them kind of lighten the load a little bit.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Julie, and I really appreciate the comments that everybody put in the chat as well, because there was some interesting discussions, which I didn't get to completely read there, but I saw some of them, and then just put in the chat as well links to my own my book, 7 Seas to Calm, and there's a discount code there just for the next few days if people want to take a look at my Focus for Success program, because it has some of those strategies there as well to help.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for sharing that and for providing that discount code as well. And I kind of felt that, of course, you're speaking from a place where you have gone through those challenges and have built up that resilience. But I suppose someone on the call, might be still in the middle of that journey and they haven't kind of reached that place yet. So I suppose that's even more reason to talk about it.
Definitely, that's the intention behind my little book. It's to give people the encouragement and the idea to start that journey, and that there is something you can do, and there is some obviously structure and tips in place. But my little book is not going to cure you of everything. It's about getting started on your journey, and you may need other supports along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I definitely recommend reaching out to someone you trust, or one of those free services, or a doctor if you are affected by anything that we've discussed today.
Actually, just like I know there are some people from various HR departments there. My little book actually could be a very good way to introduce the topic in your company, as a way of showing support, and that the door is open if you want to discuss this, or just maybe employees, for example, wouldn't be so comfortable bringing this up, but by showing the book, giving them the book, it allows them to then consider that there are options there for themselves, or maybe there's somebody in their family as well that's been affected, so it can be just a way of opening that door to the conversation.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I've just popped up on the screen, and Veronica's going to pop the links into the chat shortly, just to signpost for anyone for next month, the next 2 sessions. We have the people and the process side of things. This one is the people session, but our next process session is going to be around, so we have Richard, who's a Shingo award-winning lean production specialist. He's got over 27 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry, and he'll be sharing how we can save time, money, and increase capacity using SMED, S-M-E-D. So we'll have the link for that in the chat. That's on the 27th of July. And then the next people session is going to be on the 10th of August. And that one is all about future-proofing yourself with emotional intelligence. It's hard to predict what the future of work will look like. There's probably going to be fast pace of change. There's more diverse workplaces, more dispersed teams. And, you know, in that kind of world where many things are being automated, it's those skills that make us human that can help us future-proof ourselves. So that set of skills has been demonstrated by research to be really important for leadership and thriving in complex environments. So be sure to join us next month. And as usual, you can get in touch with us. You know, we have the LinkedIn group. We have we're on LinkedIn, Jigsaw Better Business. We're on Mind the Buzzwords on LinkedIn. You can follow us on Eventbrite. You can scan that little QR code, and we'll have those links in the chat as well. So we can hang on for another couple of minutes, just in case anyone has any last few questions. I'll be sending the email out, which will have the recording. It'll have all the resources. Caroline has gladly put together a sheet just to kind of help us, you know, in terms of dealing with anxiety, stress, all that we talked about today. So just kind of summarizing that. So just want to say thank you again so much to Caroline for taking the time out to create that document and to share your experiences today. And thank you everyone who joined today to develop yourselves, and hopefully you're coming away feeling a little bit more calm. So feel free to get in touch in the meantime, but other than that, I hope to see you next month then at our next session. So thanks everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Julie.